I'm here at the BT Convention Centre for the 3rd Annual National QIP Symposium. Let's go have a chat to some of the delegates, see what they think about it. So I'm here with Jim Easton, the National Director for Improvements and Efficiency. So Jim, given the ongoing changes, how are you feeling about that?
Well, we're at a critical time in the delivery of the £20 billion Quality and Efficiency Challenge. We started this work 2 years ago and we have made a very good start. We did the things that we said we were going to do in the first year, which is fantastic. And we achieved about £4 billion of efficiency, and the markers of quality generally have improved. But right now is the critical time, and across the country you can see some areas making fantastic progress. Others, it's a real struggle to move away from simple cost cutting to a focus on quality as well as productivity. So we need now, across the country, regionally, locally, to be focusing on those things that we know make a real difference, and redouble our efforts to implement change at patient level, to drive the innovations that we've shown make a difference. And we're going to make some efforts nationally to re-engage all of our colleagues across the NHS and social care sector in delivering that.
Fantastic. And how do you gain traction on greater collaboration across boundaries, departments and organisations?
It's a great question. I mean, we've been successful over the last 10 years really by focusing on individual organisations, individual departments. But I think everybody feels, and the evidence shows, that we can't achieve this just by making efficiencies inside single hospitals or local clinics, and the real gain to be made across those areas. I think it's really welcome that in the National Reform Programme, which people thought might put even more emphasis on individual organisations, this theme of integrating services, linking things up is coming through. And local leaders I meet are working incredibly hard on how we gain improvements in quality by not having those 6 different professionals visit a patient's home, by not having a big gap between the GP appointment and what happens in hospital and then what happens in aftercare. That's where the real gains are to be made, and the best leaders across the country are focusing their efforts on that. And, which I think is really exciting, how we use technology to join up care. Integration isn't about creating new organisations necessarily that do everything in a patch, but how those different parts use the basics of good management, but also technology to join up care and put patients in the driving seat.
Fantastic. And where do you think the best innovations can come from in your view?
Well, you know, it's quite unpredictable where they come from. We don't really have a problem in invention in the NHS. We're fantastic at invention. We're at this conference today, and again, what people will see are, you know, literally hundreds of examples of innovation that have been developed. That's before you even go to the rest of the country or around the world. Our problem is in the dissemination of innovation, in making it spread like wildfire from one place to the other. We're going to publish in December the Chief Executive's Innovation Review, which is about really thinking about how we grip that problem, how we become a community of health and social care that doesn't look suspiciously on whether it should adopt innovation, but is hungry to do it, reaches out, looks for it, and then makes it happen, adapts it in its own local circumstance. When we do that, then we'll be fantastically successful at taking individual pockets of excellence and making it widespread across the NHS.
And a conference like this really is a fantastic idea, isn't it? How do you think that today will go?
Well, it's fantastic. I've already seen some of the people here and the exhibitors, and frankly, from the day here, there's 3 years' work. If you can make 10% of the things happen here, in your local patch, then you'd have made fantastic progress. I hope and know that people are coming here hungry to think about what they adopt and take back and make work, and it looks like a fantastic contribution to the challenge.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Jim, and let's hope that fantastic progress will be made.
I run the healthcare business in the UK. I've been presenting at the boardroom breakfast meeting, and we're here to really explain and educate to people that we're not just here about Office and Windows. We have other solutions that drive the relevance into healthcare today, and they can save significant amounts of money and drive efficiencies and productivity gains.
Fantastic. Can you tell us a few of those very briefly?
So areas that we're looking at is health fault, as an example, where really are driving patient engagement. So looking for patients to take control of their own healthcare. The UK is currently, we have 13% of patients who take control of their own healthcare. In China, for example, 35% of their citizens take control of their own healthcare. That engagement deficit could actually be a £6 billion saving to the NHS. That's just a huge amount of saving that by driving patients to manage their own long-term conditions around diabetes and other such conditions can really drive that. And Microsoft, working with our partners, are building multiple applications that can be utilised on mobile phones, smartphones, slate devices. So it has the ability to drive potentially £6 billion worth of savings for the NHS by the patients and citizens taking a more involved decision making within healthcare and their health record. If we take China as an example, 35% of the citizens there are involved and driving their own health. In the UK, we're at 13%. So you can see where the benefits can come from there. But other solutions that Microsoft offer that we offer into the commercial world that we can actually adapt and align into healthcare around Microsoft Dynamics. Down at Portsmouth Hospitals, we've implemented a solution that drives supply chain efficiencies around theatre management. We've identified £2 million worth of savings per year just from stock and inventory. And you extrapolate that across the entirety of the NHS, that's £1 billion. So we're looking at those relevant solutions into the NHS and educating the board members, senior leaders, that Microsoft's not just about Office or Windows, and their view of Office and Windows is generally a 10-year-old solution because they're still using XP or Office 2003, and they can take advantage of the new technologies coming down the line.
Absolutely. So pardon my ignorance, but how does somebody look after their own is it looking after their own medical records? Is that what you mean by incorporating Microsoft into looking after their own medical health?
So if I put an example of, do you manage your money online in your bank?
Yes.
So over the last 10 to 15 years, the citizens, the patients or consumers are managing that, taking more control of the banking. Now, why wouldn't we be doing the same with our own health? If we need to monitor our blood pressure, we need to monitor our weight, we need to monitor our blood glucose levels if you're diabetic, then actually doing that on a daily basis with devices that then upload that data into a health vault, your record, you can then choose to share who you share that with. You can share it with your family, you can share it with your carer, you can share it with your GP or your consultant. You, as the patient, as the citizen, have control of who you share the information with, and so that can really drive people having access to more real-time information as opposed to just turning up to your GP and having your blood pressure done, your weight done. At that point, you can actually monitor it over time, see trends, and the GPs could then look at the registry, look at that information coming in, and see that it's trending in the wrong way and put according to the patient.
So there's a lot of progression and changes within the NHS at the minute. What's your role here today?
So what I've been talking about is trying to improve the effectiveness and efficiency of follow-up in cancer survivors. So we're making great strides in curing cancer as a result of clinical research that's been going on over the last 5, 10, 15, 20 years. And as a result of that, we have a large number of cancer survivors, and we need to make sure that their follow-up is efficient and effective. And one of the things that we're particularly interested in is the issue of second cancers in people who've been treated for Hodgkin lymphoma. So what we know is that for young women who've received radiotherapy to the chest for treatment of Hodgkin lymphoma at a young age, they're at a somewhat increased risk of breast cancer in future years. And some time ago, in 2003 actually, there was a national recall and surveillance program put in place where we invited the women in to talk about the risk of developing breast cancer and recommending screening. And what we found from implementation in the Greater Manchester and Cheshire Cancer Network is that it was actually quite difficult to engage with those women. Not all of them wanted to come into the hospital to discuss this, and the number of people who actually proceeded to screening was lower than perhaps expected and lower than perhaps we would like. And one of the issues is that we don't have a national database, and we don't have a automatic system for providing these women with appointments. And so what we've set up is a national database that will include all those at-risk women, so that at the beginning of each year we can provide the NHS breast screening programme with a list of the women who require screening that year. So, all being well, that will mean that their appointments will be provided without any difficulty. That will relieve their anxiety and concerns. The screening will take place, and we'll have a really valuable database about the breast screening, or rather the results of breast screening in that population. And that's important because it will allow us to work out whether the screening is as effective as it could be, or whether we need to tweak it and change it to make it better. So that's what I've been talking about, a national database for screening for breast cancer after treatment for Hodgkin lymphoma in young women.
Absolutely, that sounds extremely important to everybody. And do you think that an event such as this can help put a platform towards such a thing?
Well, I think what it does is expose the idea to a group of people who perhaps I wouldn't ordinarily talk to. I normally talk to other researchers. So this is a meeting where managers and other people are present, and I think it's really good that they can see that we're producing new ideas on the basis of evidence and trying to make changes to improve outcomes for individual people, and to do that as effectively and efficiently as possible. So yeah, it's a great idea.
And have you ever been to an event such as this one previously?
I've never been to this event before. I've been to lots of cancer conferences, but as I've said, that's usually with people from my own constituency, as it were.
And how are you finding it so far? Do you think hopefully it will be beneficial?
You mean the database?
The event as a whole, do you think it may be beneficial to the database concept?
So I think that it's always helpful to talk about new ideas, to get input from people, and there were some very interesting questions from the floor after I spoke. And so all those things are really useful, and it allows you to also make contacts with individuals who perhaps you wouldn't ordinarily bump into. They may have an angle on things that can help. And so overall, I think, yes, it's a useful experience.
Well, fantastic. It sounds an absolutely brilliant job that you're doing. Thank you very much, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.
So what exactly does the company that you do?
We're an innovation portal, so good ideas that people in the NHS develop, we take to the market, and good ideas that are sat out there in the market waiting to be brought into the NHS, we facilitate their introduction into the NHS.
And have you been to an event similar to this previously?
Yeah, I spoke at the very first one of these.
And how do you find them? Do you find them beneficial towards your company?
I think you cement some of the existing relationships you've got and create new ones. So yes, we've been to the last 3 of these, so we keep on coming.
And do you think that's fundamental within the NHS?
I think the NHS has to get to understand that they're in partnership with industry, and that's what this type of event does.
So, in your opinion, it's an overall success, a conference such as this one?
Well, obviously, we have to see what comes out of the conference. On paper, it looks like it's going to be a success, but until you've actually been through the process, made your contacts, and carried on the business afterwards, that's when you find out whether it's a success.
Have you been previously successful? Well, you're back again, aren't you? So it suggests so.
It does suggest that we have been, yeah. So it's all about keeping your profile and keeping in contact with people.
Absolutely. Well, thank you very much, Richard, and good luck for the rest of today. So, Andy, why are you here today?
I'm here to try and inspire the NHS leaders in the audience today about a change of mindset around capital equipment and how we could plan it better, buy it better, ultimately deploy it better for better healthcare.
So what company are you with?
NHS supply chain.
Fantastic. And do you think that conferences like this will ultimately improve the NHS then?
I think so. In themselves, I think they're really about giving and allowing a message to be understood and digested. I suppose if there were some workshops attached to some of the messaging where people were allowed or could, even for 20, 30 minutes, just work through some of the things they've heard so they could perhaps understand it before they left in a little bit more detail, I think that would help. I think you come to these conferences and people would hear 20 or 30 different topics. So unless they were very diligent about keeping notes, it's hard for them to keep abreast of everything that they've heard in sufficient detail. And then they get back to the office and the day job starts to take over. So perhaps some of these conferences could have some workshops attached to some specific topics, and that would just allow a bit more exploration of the ideas.
Absolutely, that's a fantastic idea. And have you been to any conferences similar to this previously?
Yes, I spoke here last year. I spoke here the previous year, and also I do the conference circuit in London and in various. I'm not so much a renter speaker, but we've got a message to give, and we try and get round to give it as much as possible.
Absolutely. And have you spoken here today?
Yes, just come hot off the lectern.
So if you could give us a very brief summary of what you spoke about, would you be willing to do that?
Yes, okay. So essentially it's capital medical equipment. So it's everything ranging from a linear accelerator to treat radiotherapy treatment to treat cancer, CT, MR, down to a £5,000 monitor. The NHS spends a huge amount of money on that equipment every year, buying it and maintaining it. There's an asset value of about 4 billion within the NHS. We just need to manage those assets better, replace them to schedule, plan them better, buy them better, we'll save money, we'll deploy it better for healthcare. At the moment, we're a long way from that, and I think that's what I want NHS leaders to hear, that we could bring a lot of benefits to healthcare, solve some of their problems by just taking a different approach. And really it was about changing that paradigm that we're currently in.
Well, saving money without cutting corners is what it's all about, isn't it? But
It is.
thank you very much, Andy, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.
Our own particular interest is around the good use of IT in that environment, and I think IT is a fantastic part to play, working with the NHS in looking for solutions that really bring good technology into the hands of doctors and nurses and allow them to do what they always want to do, which is safe, good, high quality care.
Fantastic. And what other new opportunities do you see in your department in particular?
Well, I see the use of, in particular, some of the newer technologies, the sort of consumer technologies that we're all aware of in other walks of life, such as mobile phones, iPads, the sort of computer tablets that we're all now very familiar with, being used to good advantage in the hospital and in other parts of the NHS. So a fantastic opportunity for the NHS to pick up on all the good ideas that are now coming into play through the consumer technology route.
So really develop in a technical sense as well.
Developing in a technical sense and taking advantage of all the IT that's now available that perhaps wasn't available 12 months ago, 24 months ago. And technology, particularly, that users are very familiar with already, in that they use them in other walks of life.
And how do you think that we gain traction on greater collaborations across boundaries, in your opinion?
Well, I think this is where conferences like this are fantastically important, because it allows all of us to get together against a common agenda, a very important agenda. And it's very hard for public sector, private sector, different aspects of the public sector, all to join together to discuss and share information that allows the industry to move forward. So from the private sector, we're always very keen to listen and learn, as well as share what we have learned in our own travels and bring that to bear in conferences like this. So really important.
Fantastic. And where do you think the best innovations can come from, in your own opinion?
I think the best innovations come from within organisations themselves. And I think the issue is to allow those new innovations and new ideas to take shape, and for organisations to support these by potentially working with organisations like ourselves in the private sector, and therefore bringing those innovations to life and allowing them to spread within the sectors that we work.
And how are you finding today's conference so far?
Oh, it's excellent. Such a buzz, good fun as well as good dialogue.
Good.
I'm enjoying it. I think everyone else is enjoying it, and I'm looking forward to the rest of the day.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much for speaking with us, Donald. So, Stephen, who are you here with today?
Hi, Sarah. Yeah, I'm Head of NHS Services and Solutions for Harvey Walsh. Harvey Walsh are an NHS data intermediary. So probably the simplest way to describe it is we're one of the few companies that are allowed to hold a duplicate copy of the NHS database. So we can look at all hospital episode data and prescribing across the whole of England, I should say.
Fantastic. And so what new opportunities do you see in your department, what with the ongoing changes within the NHS?
I think the NHS has an amazing amount of data, but the challenge is turning that data into information that people can actually access and understand. And the main raison d'etre for Harvey Walsh is to simplify what would otherwise be vast spreadsheets of numbers into data that a particular customer, be it pharma or the NHS, actually want to look at.
So is it making it a lot easier to view via technical means?
Yeah, I mean, very simply, I suppose the best way of thinking of it is having a graphical view of numbers, but the challenge is to have the right information that will give you the answers to the questions you're asking. And in some cases, it's not so much seeking an answer, but being able to ask the right questions that the data is presenting you so you can make decisions.
Fantastic, that sounds extremely promising. And how do you think that we gain traction across boundaries?
In my industry, which basically bridges the pharmaceutical industry and the NHS, the challenge is around partnership working and partnership solutions. And it's being able to find common cause, to have the same language, and by simplifying the data, you can then create a dialogue around particular disease areas so that both parties are talking around about the same thing and the same outcomes and the same goals.
And do you find an event like this enables that to happen?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, networking is absolutely critical to this. The thing is, everyone knows their own data, but doesn't know what everyone else has. So the more you actually talk between people, someone may have some bright, innovative solution that is the answer to your problem in presenting the data. And this is the perfect environment to present that.
And how are you finding today so far? Has it been successful for yourself?
So far, my sessions are mainly this afternoon, so talk to me later on and I'll tell you how it's gone.
Brilliant. Well, thank you very much, Stephen, and good luck to you.
Thank you.
I'm an NHS consultant here on behalf of my organisation, which is Coventry Warwickshire Partnership Trust.
And what does that do?
We're an NHS trust coming up to foundation status. My prime role is working with people with elderly people.
Fantastic. Fantastic. And what new opportunities do you see in your department, given the ongoing changes and advances within the landscape?
Well, we've got to make 20% saving with NHS as any other organisation, and it's coming to events like this to try and find out best ways of good practice that we can share from other organisations.
So do you feel like events like this are beneficial?
Yes, absolutely.
Brilliant. And how do you think that we gain traction on greater collaborations across boundaries within the NHS?
I think events like this are the first way of doing so. I mean, the problem at the moment is that in one of the earlier lectures I mentioned silos, and the NHS is very much that. Every individual organisation, every individual department just looks within their own selves and never shares or learns from other individuals. So the fantastic thing about today is that not only are we sharing across the NHS, but we've got independent organisations across who are able to put forward their ideas and views.
So it's all about striking a dialogue between
Absolutely.
different departments. And finally, where do you think that the best innovations can come from from your view?
Sharing.
Sharing, do you think?
Yeah, I think sharing knowledge and ideas just to move forward, because otherwise we get stuck in a rut and you never know the way forward. So.
Well, thank you very much, Rafi, for that insight, and have a lovely day.
Thank you.
And what new opportunities do you see in your department, given the changes within the NHS currently?
A lot of problems here around how we're going to deliver the same level of services and improve on them with less money. Now, the only way we can do that is to start breaking down the traditional barriers between primary and secondary care, and that's been the biggest challenge. And certainly when the market forces were brought in with the creation of trusts and moving away, what happened was we all started to compete against each other. Now that drove up quality initially within the NHS, but the problem now is there just isn't the same amount of money. There aren't the patients to move away from, so we've got to take a different tact, and that's about working more closely together, looking at where we can get the efficiencies across the whole system, not just in a specific organisation. That doesn't mean we don't still have to do the efficiencies in the organisation, but breaking down those traditional mentalities around not working together is really difficult, and it's going to be very challenging over the coming years.
And how do you start to formulate a relationship in that respect?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, there's an awful lot of joint working taking place, but it's about identifying areas that aren't going to challenge the other trusts, aren't going to put them at risk. So getting wins for both organisations or multiple organisations, because everyone has a realisation that the reality is that there will have to be a downsizing of organisations over the coming years, or a change in the way we provide services. So there won't be as many acutes, there'll be more DGHs, district general hospitals, there'll be more walk-in centres, a lot more cares moving into primary care. So you find an awful lot of organisations are very defensive about what that's going to mean to them, and they're less accepting of how we work together. It's about breaking down that mentality and saying, well, actually, if we work together, we can all survive, we can deliver a better service. There will have to be reconfiguration, that's inevitable. But at the end of the day, this isn't about the individual organisations. This has got to be about the care we provide for the patients.
Well, absolutely. I think that is 100% true, it seems. What, in your opinion, though, has been the most innovative idea that's been put forward?
That's been put forward? Well, there's lots of innovative ideas being put forward at the moment. I mean, patient self-care is key to moving forward, and that doesn't mean that suddenly there's no clinicians and doctors. It just means that actually a lot of the care that is provided for a patient now can be done at home, and actually is much better to be done at home, but it doesn't happen. So a patient will make their way into a hospital, they'll take a day out to get here, they'll wait a few hours for their appointment, they'll see a clinician for 15 minutes if they're lucky, and then they'll go away and they'll come back in another 3 months to make it sure, check that they've taken their medication, that it's had the impact. We heard today Jonathan Mason talking about how it's all very well as prescribing medication or prescribing treatment, but at the end of the day, the patient needs to take that medication, and they need to take it when they need to take it, not when they remember, which might be 5 hours after they should have, or the next day, because actually the effect of that will build up, and if they're not taking it at exactly the right time, then they won't get the benefit. So how do we do that? Well, it's about educating patients, it's about educating people to actually manage their own condition, but having that security blanket of a clinician at the end of a phone, at the end of a website, or the ability to be able to go and see the clinician, if you're just concerned and you want to walk in. And we need to get to that model. We're not there at the moment. At the moment, you've got to go to see your GP. You've got to make an appointment with a hospital. You've got to wait 13 weeks before you can come in and see us. It's breaking that all down. So it says, here's a completely different model of care. This is how you can work. This is how you can look after it and take ownership for you. We'll provide you with a support mechanism. We'll provide you with the tools to do it, and we'll monitor to make sure it's happening. So it takes the worry away from you, but actually gives more responsibility for the management of the illness. And the next stage is going to be before you even get ill. It's going to be identifying the high risk categories. And we talked again today about identifying women who are more at risk of breast cancer and who need to be targeted for screening. That's not just one area. We can do that across a whole range of areas. We have the information, we have the knowledge. It's about using it. At the eHealth Insider live event on Monday, Julie Moore from University Hospital Birmingham gave a speech about how they're actually doing that work now, how they're using their information to target DNAs and to look at where look at the patients who are more at risk if they do DNA, but then need to be targeted and given extra focus so that we make sure that they get the care, because otherwise they're likely to come back as an emergency admission, which will cost the health service more. But ultimately, the impact on the patient is far greater, because there's things we could have done beforehand, but it's too late once they come in as an emergency.
Absolutely. Well, it all sounds fantastic, and I wish you the best of luck with it, James.
I'm with NHS Direct. I've been here talking about our example of delivery of for urgent care with our app for users, for patients to use to help them work out where in urgent and emergency care they should go if they have a medical problem.
So would you say that that's the most innovative idea that you've seen so far, trying to drive the NHS forward throughout their ongoing changes?
I mean, the NHS is a big set of organisations, so there's lots of innovative ideas all in their own area. In urgent and emergency care, we're addressing what we think is the big problem in urgent and emergency care, which is people just don't know where to go if they're sick, whether they go to A&E, whether they go to their GP, or whether a walk-in centre, or any other of a range of options that they have available to them.
So in your opinion, what in your opinion would be the most innovative idea, would you say? Putting you on the spot there.
The most innovative ideas are all the ones around integration, making sure that it's seamless from end to end. NHS has lots of different organisations, as I said, so the most innovative ideas are around integration, making sure that the patient goes and enters the system where they want to engage. So if that's through an app like ours, then that's brilliant, but it's then seamless, so they go from app to doctor to specialist in one seamless process. That's what innovation is going to lie.
And with this integration that you speak of and collaborating with other sectors, other businesses, how do you think to tie that together to make it seamless can come about?
Well, hopefully there'll be a lot of drive from the new clinical commissioning groups to try and make sure that their patients get the best experience possible. So that's going to be one of the big drivers going forward. And obviously, hopefully a national framework driven by Department of Health and the rest of the stakeholders to try and make sure that we get this integration through open standards, making sure that everyone's systems can talk to each other. We saw some other examples of that today with clinical portals. So it's making sure all the systems join up.
And do you think somewhere like this, an event like this today, enables the systems to join up, as you say?
Yeah, I'd say events like this are great for making sure that people know what best practice is in different sectors, because it's all very well knowing what's good for your sector if you're a hospital or if you're a GP, but actually you can learn from all the other sectors in NHS and from the wider market in provision of all sorts of goods and services.
And do you think these days more businesses are having more of a dialogue with each other rather than concentrating on what they all do individually?
Yeah, I think we are starting to break down some of the silos between NHS, private, and all the other different types of organisation within the healthcare sector. So and events like this are really good for helping with that.
So how are you finding today so far anyway?
It's really good. It's a nice day. Nice day in Liverpool. Somewhere.
It is, isn't it?
No, but it's a really good day.
And hopefully be beneficial to yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. I've already had some good conversations with people round and about, some good networking.
And that's what it's all about, isn't it?
It's been a good day.
Thank you very much and enjoy the rest of your day. So Simon, what are you doing here today?
Hi, I've been talking about spinal cord stimulation for chronic neuropathic pain management for patients in the National Health Service.
And you're a doctor yourself, aren't you?
Yeah, I work down in Basildon and Thurrock University hospitals. I have been there a consultant for 20 years. And I'm also president of the International Neuromodulation Society, which is a worldwide education society for doctors who are interested in developing neuromodulation treatments, of which spinal cord stimulation is one of them.
Fantastic, and that's why you're here today?
Yeah. Neuromodulation has got a great future for the challenge that long-term chronic illness management poses. It employs technology that's available to us now and available to us, but it's how do we actually get this incorporated into mainstream medicine? Spinal cord stimulation is really pretty advanced, and we actually have technology assessment from NICE, which just basically confirms that it is clinically and cost effective. But why hasn't it been more why is it not more widespread in the National Health Service? And that's really the challenge, and that's been the essence of my talk today, to really lay down that challenge so that we can actually start to change the processes within the National Health Service to meet the demands of quality and innovation and productivity that we so desperately require. And that's what I thought this meeting was going to be all about.
And have you found that that's been the case?
Well, I have to say I've been a little disappointed in some of the content that I've heard to date, and it's sounded to me a little bit more like various companies advertising their wares. And I know that's how this conference is sponsored, but I do believe that it really should be more about what clinicians, switched-on clinicians, perceive as to being the needs in the health service, and then supported by the companies.
What would you say is the most innovative idea or concept that you have seen from today, if any?
Well, I have to say, I haven't actually been to many of the things. I briefly went to the plenary sessions, and I was surprised to... They were more general talks, and talks about software management, and we all know the troubles that the NHS got into with its Connecting for Health. And one does have to wonder, there is this disconnect, I would say, between those in the Department of Health and in the non-medical parts of the National Health Service and clinicians who are at the front line. And, I think that's quite an interesting thing. It's been an education to me.
Absolutely. Now, what we've learned since doing these interviews is that previously people tended to work alone, whereas through conferences such as this one, people trying to link together in order to hopefully push the NHS forward. Do you have the same opinion?
Yeah, I think, obviously this is a work in progress. It's only their third Congress. But I think the organisers need to actually think about have a little bit more of a steer onto the direction that we're going, because at the end of the day, most innovations, certainly in healthcare, occur as a result of doctors. The processes and the innovations in processes, I grant you, can be helped managed by the if you like, the healthcare managers. But essentially, they have got to go to the grassroots level of the doctors to really, I think, make change stick.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much for your insights and have a lovely day. Thank you very much, Simon. Then what are you doing here today?
Well, I was chairing this morning session. That's my main reason for being here, but for me it's a really great opportunity to get some messages across about my interest, which is medicines optimization, with real opinion leaders within organisations who can actually make stuff happen on the ground.
Fantastic. So, bar my ignorance, if you were to explain it to me, what does that actually entail?
Okay, medicines optimization is a new concept, really. We're moving away from the sort of previous thoughts about medicines management, which is very much about how you manage medicines. So it covers things like prescribing, getting medicines to the patient, and all the safe systems, which is still very, very important. But medicines optimization is looking at how we get really good outcomes from the use of medicines. So helping people use their medicines, making sure that we use the right medicines in the right way, in the right people.
And is that through technical means?
Well, it's a whole range of things. So technologies that can support people. So I was in a session, I went after the morning session, there was a session on diabetes and looking at how we can support people with insulin pumps and integrate all the information that monitors their blood glucose, monitors how much insulin they need to use, real sort of great bit of kit that brings everything together so that the patient gets really good outcomes from the use of their insulin and manages their condition better.
Which is what it's all about.
Yeah, so part of it's about making best use of technologies, but it's also about integrating services, it's about helping people, getting healthcare professionals to work with each other. And stop working in silos.
Absolutely. So you've mentioned the insulin pumps. What would you say, though, has been the most innovative concepts that you've seen here today?
Yeah, I think actually it is that insulin pump therapy, the new device that's coming beginning of next year, which in the past, people needing insulin have had to use syringes, they've had to use different devices for monitoring their blood glucose, blood pressure, all sorts of things. They're using lots of different devices. And this bit of kit brings it all together and monitors their blood glucose, their insulin, gives them doses of insulin when it's needed, and manages it all in one tiny piece of kit. It's just a fantastic bit of kit, and it's made in Britain, it's invented in Britain, so it's a real opportunity to showcase what Britain can do in terms of invention and innovation.
Absolutely. Now, you mentioned also previously that people tended to previously work solo.
Yeah.
How do you think people are working together and formulating a relationship? Is it through events such as this one?
Yeah, very much so, and it's this sort of event which is very multidisciplinary. Real opportunity to bring people together, to break down some of those silo working, some of the barriers towards integrated working together. Because we do, as an NHS, we work in silos, have done historically. And we've got to get over that, and we've got to encourage people to come to events like this and say, actually, there's something in it for everybody. And this sort of event, with a very varied agenda, does have something for everybody. So the people who are really geeky, there are things that they can look at, they can play with and see some of these new devices. There's some clinical bits in there, there's some management, sort of strategic ideas about the direction that the NHS is going. So there is something in it for chief execs, for pharmacists, for nurses, for doctors.
There really does seem to be a change of the NHS at the minute. How do you think the side that you're working with are breaking the boundaries?
Well, we're having to work together. I think with all the changes, it's almost sort of disruptive in its way of disruptive innovation. So by making everybody have to look at change within the system, breaking up PCTs, forming clusters, you've got various bodies forming. The people in the centre are saying, actually, at the centre of it all, are saying, we have to work together to make sure that the structures that build up around us work for us, for our patients. So actually this disruptive innovation really is forcing people to work together in innovative ways, in ways they haven't in the past.
But that will hopefully drive the future of the NHS forward.
Yeah, and the future has to be, we have to focus on the 4 elements of QIP. People have focused on the productivity bit in the past, so a lot of work's gone into making savings, which we have to do. There are savings that need to be made. There's a lot of waste in the system. We need to be more productive. But actually we can't deliver new systems within the NHS, a new NHS, if we don't do all 4 elements. So we have to focus on quality, because better quality costs less in the long run. We have to look at how we use innovation to spread good practice, innovative practice around the NHS, and we have to focus on prevention, because that's going to be the real key in future, preventing long-term ill health.
Absolutely, QIP definitely does seem to be the way forward. Well, thank you very much for your time, Jonathan, and enjoy the rest of your afternoon.
So I'm Indy Singh. I lead up the QIP digital function, and that's a function that works across each of the national work streams. And here really I did a presentation this morning around how digital technology can help QIP and how us as a function are working across the national work streams and the local teams to use technology to help meet their QIP objectives.
Fantastic. And what would you say has been the most innovative concept
So I think
in your
it's probably
opinion?
twofold. One, that actually there's a huge amount that's already out there. And there's some things that we can do right now that can make a significant change. So it's not about science fiction, it's around the fact that there's a huge amount of digital innovation that already exists, and how can we use that and make the most out of that. And also look at how we can use digital technology, which has changed the way that we've interacted with nearly every other sector, be it retail, banking, and actually use those same principles for healthcare and really help us make the most out of patients, carers and information, which are probably some of the most underutilised resources that we have within the NHS.
I think previously the different components of the NHS would work independently, but now it seems they're trying to work together. How do you think they're being sewn together, so to speak?
So I think it's interesting. Some of the work we're doing with the long-term conditions management around it needs to move away from particular conditions to helping that person as a whole, be it across social care, be it across healthcare, manage themselves and their healthcare. And again, that's where digital technology can make a significant role, be it telehealth, be it online care planning. And that's again when we're working with the long-term condition workstream and their local teams to really help them understand what they can do, but also help them to understand how they can deliver that more effectively.
And do you think events like this help that process go forward?
I think it's really important for events like this so it can help publicise the work that's going on and the really good work that's going on both at a local level, and also really bring teams together and also highlight how we can help them accelerate their delivery. So some of the stuff we're doing around like interoperability standards or around guidance or around procurement frameworks to help the local NHS and local teams to be able to deliver their QIP objectives more effectively.
Fantastic. Sounds extremely positive. And are you enjoying today, Indy?
I am. After the very early start, I'm now kicking my heels back. So no, it's been a really, really good day so far.
Fantastic. Well, continue to enjoy it, and
Thanks
thank you
very
very much. So you did your speech today, did you?
Yes, I just gave the talk just now, yeah.
And how do you think it went?
I think it went quite well to those who turned up. The attendance was a little bit disappointing because it was the end of the day.
Absolutely. Well, thank you very much and have a safe journey home. So, Mike, how have you found the experience of the event today?
I thought it was really interesting. I thought some really interesting themes coming through, and the same ones, actually, as you're going through a few of the different sessions. So, yeah, coming together.
Fantastic. And do you think you've learnt some new ideas?
I knew very little about long-term conditions today, so, yeah, I've picked a few ideas up from there.
Fantastic. So, overall, how would you describe your experience here today?
It's been quite enjoyable, actually. Good bunch of people. Had some good conversations. And yeah, we'll see where it takes us from here.
Absolutely. So overall, would you say that it's been a beneficial day to yourself?
Yes, yeah, definitely worthwhile coming today.
So Jeff, how was your experience of today?
It's been really interesting. I really like the format of it being very short presentations, really succinct. You know, kept things moving and interesting. No death by PowerPoint.
Good,
just
good.
Mixing up, that was really interesting. Yeah.
And have you come away with any new knowledge?
Yeah, it's been interesting to look at. You see perspectives that you don't normally come across because in your day-to-day work you're involved in a certain area, but you see other parts of the NHS talking about their issues, which is really good to hear.
It seemed like previously the companies within the NHS worked separately. Now it seems like through these events they're generating a dialogue between each other. Would you agree? And do you think days like today have benefited in that respect?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's really important because the NHS is such a large, complex organisation. To have a good dialogue is always challenging. So events like this are really important to bring the different parties together.
And overall, would you come back again next year?
Yeah, absolutely.
So Anne, how have you found today?
I find it really, really interesting. My job involves me working across the health system on QIP and transformation. So I come to pick up ideas, but also to sort of make sure that I'm up to date with the current thinking in loads and loads of areas that you've had presentations on today.
Absolutely. I mean, today was all about new ideas. Have you come away with many?
Well, actually, one of them, it's just a very simple one, is the use of script switch, which is the sort of swapping of drugs in front of a GP with a patient there at the time of prescribing, and the impact that that can have on what we do around antibiotic prescribing, and that might help prevent C. diff infections. So I've just come away thinking I'd never thought of connecting what's happening with script switch with what we're doing with about reducing infections in the community around C. diff. So that's something I've already emailed to my Director of Public Health and Prescribing lead to say, are we doing this? And if not, should we?
Brilliant already, so quick.
Already, yes. I haven't had a reply yet.
And would you say that that's been the most innovative thing that you've seen here today?
No, not at all, not at all. I mean, I've come away with a lot of things. I'm trying to think about how we prevent ill health exacerbation and how we actually move things into the community and work on them safely. So I've seen a number of presentations about what's happening in primary care in other areas, particularly around heart failure, and how we can actually diagnose and maintain people in the community without them having to go through to relatively expensive hospital care unnecessarily. So I've seen quite a few things on that front that I'm taking home with me today.
Absolutely, very interesting. So overall, would you say that days like this benefit the health sector?
I think they do, yes. It's been a very long day, I must say that. There's a lot of different sort of sound bites that I think we've all come away with. It gives you time to think. It just helps you to sort of think out of the box a little bit, and it's very easy to get very bogged down back where you are and think there's a way of doing it. And this just helps you to open your eyes to how it's done elsewhere, and just I always go back with loads of ideas and then try and share them, and I'm sure it helps move the thinking locally on as well as just me having the time out to get my head around different ways of working.
Absolutely, and hopefully progress the NHS to the future.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you very much. So Elsa, how have you found today?
Oh, it was absolutely excellent. It was a great opportunity to just learn about the breadth of what's going on across the QIP work streams and to share the work that we're doing in the QIP Safe Care programme.
Fantastic. And have you come away with many new ideas?
We have. We've got lots of ideas and lots of contacts, really. I think it's the networking opportunities at these events that are fabulous. So it's to join up and align the work that we're doing. But we've certainly got lots of people we'll be contacting over the next day or two, which is great.
That's brilliant. And so joining up the work that people are doing, do you think that will push the NHS forward, in your opinion?
It definitely will. There's too much duplication at the moment in the NHS. We're very good at doing small-scale projects and reinventing the wheel. And what events like today do is give us an opportunity to share that learning and take the best practice and spread it at pace and scale, which is great.
So what's been the most innovative thing that you've seen here today?
Oh, that's a difficult one because there's quite a lot of innovative. I think it's got to be the NHS 111. That was just a great presentation that we've heard about how the access to care is going to improve for the whole of us, which is great.
Absolutely. And do you think days like this benefit the NHS and the health sector as a whole, in your opinion?
Absolutely, because if we don't have days like this, we don't know, and we're not able to access the best practice that's going on. And certainly, without a shadow of a doubt, it's the opportunity to discuss things with people and you get ideas. We've just had a GP commissioner who's just asked for something about nutrition, which I hadn't even thought would be helpful. So it's definitely a great opportunity.
Well, thank you very much. So how have you found today?
I was very fortunate. I came for the board session this morning and I really found that excellent. We had a wide range of excellent quality speakers who I think really highlighting all the issues that we've got to face coming forward.
And do you think days like this might progress the NHS and hopefully eradicate the issues that you just speak of?
I think there are huge issues, as you know, and certainly to see the will to want to change some of these things I think is very, very exciting, and I see this as a challenge and an opportunity for the NHS. So I'm a great believer that the NHS is the way forward.
So days like this encourage people like yourself, do you find?
Yes, they do. Yes, they do, definitely, because you get to get ideas from industry, from other departments, from other parts of the country, and I think that allows you to then go and apply those thoughts to your own organisations and your own ideas.
So how have you found today?
Well, I found the last couple of sessions really useful. I mean, any conversation we have about improving technology adoption in the NHS is one we should welcome. I work alongside people in the pharmaceutical industry who have lots of issues all the time about how you support best practice application and also how you get access to products and medicines. And conversations today that help to get a greater understanding across industry, technology and the NHS about how you move forward those things is really useful, and that's what we've done the last couple of hours.
So do you think technology in the NHS will push it forward through the future, in your opinion?
Well, it should do. The question is about the degree to which the NHS is prepared to make an investment now to enable that to happen. I think everyone would recognise technology has an important place. The question is whether in the testing financial circumstances that we face, not just now but in the next few years, whether the NHS will make that step forward and invest in that technology. And I guess that's what events like today help to try and do.
In your opinion, though, would it be more of a computer-based tracking of somebody's medical records rather than a human contact? Do you think that's the way forward then with the technology?
No, I think not necessarily. I think the way the technology should be about is about enabling that human interaction to be as effective as it can be. And from work I've certainly done in the past around things like long-term conditions, you get the best results where the technology enables the patient interaction. It doesn't have to be that it's always face-to-face, but certainly something that supports some kind of human interaction always tends to work pretty well. So I'm not sure it'll be something that moves to being completely computerised. There may be elements where that works, but I think predominantly, I think there should be things that are about supporting the care pathways and the methods of care that we like to think are the ones we use most in the NHS.
Fantastic, I absolutely agree with you. Do you find like days like today will benefit the NHS and the health sector as a whole in the future?
Yes, because they get an appreciation of, I guess, not just the kinds of products and technologies that are available, but also some of the challenges that the manufacturers face in bringing those, not just to market, but bringing them to actual day-to-day use. And I think anything that promotes an understanding of that, it's just one step in the process of working towards the technology adoption. So yes, days like today are always going to help with something like that.
So Hadley, how have you found today?
I think it's good. I think what it's identified actually is there's loads of pockets of innovation and excellence in the NHS, and actually I think it's about trying to share that knowledge more and become more open in the good stuff that's happening out there. And I think it's a shame that you almost have a postcode lottery where great things are happening in one place but not in the other, and things like this are good to bring that knowledge and experience together really.
So do you think days like today strike conversations between NHS departments that wouldn't usually happen?
Yeah, I think so, and I think having people like John Oldham here and being able to ask questions to people at that level all the way down to people implementing on the ground has been really important actually. And I think we talk about a network of contacts and the people that we, associate the work that we do with, and actually coming to things like this, you expand that network and you really gain an insight into what other people are doing. So, in that sense.
So, gaining an insight into what other people are doing, do you think that will be ultimately the drive that pushes the NHS forward within the future?
Yeah, I think so, and I think learning what other people are doing, and actually John Oldham referred to the NHS as having chronic pilotitis, and the idea that we have to test the evidence that's already there through a pilot and then nothing else happens with it, but actually we can learn about the pilots and the success of those pilots, and through events like this think, right, we might want to commission those services, we don't need to do a pilot, we can go forward with implementation. And that's really important, I think. So
I agree. So will you be here next year, Hadley?
I hope so.
Absolutely. See you then. Thank you very much. Thank you.
we're learning a lot from so many of the leaders in the network. Several things become clear. One is that the sector is due for even more change than we have been through, and exciting change. Change that will propel us forward in a very positive sense. New sciences, new innovations, new collaborations, new strategies. I think there's not been a better time to be in this industry than now.